Hey, Mike.
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, our buddy from Unidragon is back.
Yeah, I know.
How do you know?
The owl told me.
The owl told you.
Yeah, he tells me everything. Yeah, we've talked about this guy before. He's the puzzle guy.
He's the puzzle guy. That's correct. They do, of course, have the owl, and the owl is available for you to now get with Prime free delivery.
Awesome.
We've made it easier for people to find the owl.
Yeah, I know. The owl told me about that, too.
The owl did. What did the owl tell you?
He told me to go on to the TechTime Radio website /sponsors.
Wow. The owl is just telling you everything. Well, make sure if you're purchasing the Unidragon from TechTime Radio, again, you go to techtimeradio.com /sponsors. Make sure you use our special TechTime code. You know what the code is, Mike?
What's the TechTime code?
Well, on Amazon and on a purchase order through our site, use the code TechTime.
Really?
Yeah, that's spelled TECHTIME.
Wow. Hooked on phonics worked for you, didn't it?
And it's got a link so you can immediately click and purchase Unidragon off of Amazon. Don't get fooled by fake puzzle people out there trying to sell you imitation puzzles. Go and find the brand you can trust, unidragon.com. And again, go to techtimeradio.com /sponsors, because the owl will tell you no place better to buy it than with the TechTime Radio code.
And there's 3 sizes.
That's right, Mike. There's 3 sizes. We would like to thank Podcorn for sponsoring this episode of TechTime Radio. Explore sponsorship opportunities and start monetizing your podcast by signing up at podcorn.com /podcasters. Let me tell you about Podcorn. Podcorn is an absolute must for any podcaster starting out. Now, when we started out TechTime Radio, we started out in a back office with a couple of mics. We expanded to a studio, and then now, as you can see, we're on the radio and have distribution into other markets. Having the ability to have Podcorn at the start of our podcast would have been a dream come true. Guess what? With Podcorn, you now have the amazing opportunity for podcasts to receive sponsorship, such as host reads, interview segments, and topical discussions. With Podcorn, there's no middleman. Podcasters of all sizes can browse and choose opportunities right on their platform, set their own rates, and collaborate with brands directly without exclusivities. You never give up the rights of your podcast in Podcorn, and they're here to support you everywhere possible. Visit podcorn.com. Again, that's podcorn.com. Podcorn is a true success for those starting their podcast dreams.
Coming to you from the shores of the Pacific Northwest, keeping you up to date on technology while enjoying a little whiskey on the side, with leading-edge topics, along with special guests, to navigate technology in a segmented, stylized radio program. The information that will make you go, Pull up a seat, raise a glass with our hosts as we spend the next hour talking about technology for the common person. Welcome to TechTime Radio with Nathan Mumm.
Welcome to TechTime Radio with Nathan Mumm, the show that makes you go, Technology news of the week, the show that is for the everyday common person with insightful segments on subjects weeks ahead of the mainstream media. I'm Nathan Mumm, and welcome to our show. We are live streaming today, 4 to 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Everybody knows those are the times we do. If you're not catching us, 4 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, which means
Lay it out.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, not 4 to 6, and Sunday.
There you
that
go.
means you're getting a rebroadcast.
Good, so you got all 7.
So that's
good.
That's right. So if you're getting a rebroadcast, you can always go to techtimeradio.com and stay up on the latest news information. We got our stories, we got top of the day information and our blogs, and our upcoming newsletter will be coming on out from us. I can't wait to hear what we're going to be writing about. I don't know. We need to talk about that at our next production meeting, don't we?
We're going to write on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Thursday?
Friday.
Is that what you're going to do? All right. Well, welcome to the show. So again, make sure if you're listening to a rebroadcast, visit us on techtimeradio.com and you can find out all the information. We're a 2-hour technology show that talks about technology without having to geek out. On our first hour, we have an Amazon story that roars like a lion. We have a special guest who will be talking.
That was good.
There you go. We have a special guest who will be talking about putting together a documentary or movie with industry technology secrets. We have a tech company stopping the testing of marijuana on its standard drug tests. Netflix is offering some video game subscription. We have tons of things going. We have a company that will be making a comeback called Atari. We're going to be talking about that. As you can see in our little display set here, we have an original Atari 2600.
Look at there.
40-plus-year-old machine that I played on when I was a little tyke.
Yeah.
We have great information. We'll have our Mike's mesmerizing moment. We'll have our NFT and our whiskey tasting. On our second hour, we have letter segments. I got some fun. I got a funny letters that is. I'm really excited to read about it. You can tell it was cut and pasting time for the person that was sending out the spam, and so
that's right.
So he cut and
about
paste
this one.
Yeah, he cut and pasted a couple extra different things into the things. So pretty interesting. And then we're gonna also have Jason Sherman, and he will be back on, and he's gonna be talking about how the technology and aspects work to putting together a documentary. So we're gonna talk about it first.
Equipment, right?
We're going to talk about what type of cameras you use, what type of software you use, what type of hardware that you may have, how you set up stuff. So we're really going to talk about kind of the overlay view first, and then we're going to really get into kind of the technology. So if you're interested in any film producing, any documentary producing, any
taking pictures.
Any video production, which essentially 90% of what people watch today is movies and interactive type of content. Twitch.tv, which we're live right now streaming. People are watching that, YouTube and everything. So this is really an important segment. It should be pretty fun. And then we have our story back from last week, stories you didn't know about. We're going to be talking about Satya Nadella. I got it right.
You sure?
I practiced that.
Okay.
From Microsoft. So we're going to get to his segment hopefully today. And then we are going to also be giving away some prizes to our first callers today. So David is ready. We got tons of stuff to get rid of. 425-373-5527 or 188-298-5569. The very first person to call on the show today, we're going to give away the Vivomi Pulse device. We have an extra one of those that we're going to be giving away. So first person to call in, again, 425-373-5527. Talk to David Brown, our engineer extraordinaire, or 188-298-5569 and get stuff ready to go. Now, Mike, we're going to go right to our loaded question of the day because I really don't care how your week was, but I do care about how you answer our loaded question. That's the most important. If you could rewrite history, what time period would you focus on?
You know, we were talking about stuff like this before.
Yeah.
I would love to go back and stop the burning of the library in Alexandria.
Okay. What century is that?
That's 2nd century.
2nd century? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not quite sure.
Okay.
Not quite sure the date on that, but
why would you want to stop it?
Because the library in Alexandria was the repository for almost all the ancient world's knowledge.
Yeah.
And it was burned in a riot.
So you'd like to go back there and then we could have all those original manuscripts?
That would be something to look at. That would be something to really, really dig your
heels into it and make a difference. See, I think I would go back to Roman's Empire and I'd tell them not to fall apart. And I would say
I'm sure that would be the only thing they would need. Just don't fall apart.
So listen, guys, we want to keep on having Rome be really successful here. Here's what we need to do. Here's the technology plan. I come up with my 5-step program and I'd be right there. Come on, guys, this is what we need to do.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure they would have
listened to me.
No,
they would have thrown me in a pit with a bunch of lions.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, that was our loaded question of the day. We're going to be doing our whiskey tasting after the first break, so we're excited about that. Hopefully, we either get a 0, 1, or 2 thumbs up for our pick of the day. And now we're going to start our episode with our top stories in the first 5 minutes.
What's happening in the world of technology? This is our top stories in the first 5 minutes.
All right, welcome to the top stories in the first 5 minutes. We're going to story number 1. Amazon is a roaring lion sitting back on a bed, looking and chilling out to some grooves. So that's kind of, I'm trying to do all the stories we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So Amazon is a roaring lion is going to be talking about because they purchased MGF. So we're going to be talking about that. They're sitting back because they have a brand new policy on some of their time off. So they're sitting back about their tracking stuff. So they're sitting back now and they're kind of saying, oops, we made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And then they're chilling and listening to groovy tunes because they are no longer testing for marijuana. So we'll get right to that. All right, story number 1. We have our Las Vegas correspondent with some audio here talking about the breaking story.
Amazon has officially signed the deal to buy movie and TV studio MGM. The price, $8.45 billion. MGM Library concludes the James Bond movie franchise, Rocky, and the TV studio that developed the Shark Tank reality series. All those properties could become exclusively available on Amazon Prime Video. This stands to be Amazon's biggest acquisition since it purchased Whole Foods Market 4 years ago.
All right, so $8.4 billion. Essentially, they get 4,000 films and 1,700,000 hours of television programming is what they purchased.
Okay.
So they want to be a little bit more competitive to Netflix. So this is going to be the big deal right now, right? You're going to have everybody Netflix.
They're stomping. That's why one of our stories is about Netflix.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. So MGM, you get the James Bond, Rocky, you get 12 Angry Men, and I just can't wait to see Shark Tank coming on up with the little Amazon logo, right? That's going to be the most interesting thing because Shark Tank is one of the produced shows that are part of MGM. So that means you're going to have Kevin O'Leary there trying to get a residual royalty deal for everything, and Amazon is going to have it on their streaming service. That's going to be a very interesting thing to do. Maybe Bezos will want to jump onto that. All right, so the real value is the intellectual property, right?
Yes.
So that's what they get. They get James Bond continuations. They get the old information they have available, and so they can then now remarket stuff as James Bond stuff and additional items to that. Now, Amazon is just so aggressively in the news this week. They have also changed their employees' policy for time off and marijuana. Yeah. Now, Amazon announced Tuesday it supports the federal legalization of marijuana, and the company is revising its controversial workplace policy that says that it will keep employees' work and breakneck paces.
Yeah, these are two different things.
So they're two different. They released it on Tuesday, both things. Yeah. So one is talking about their break time.
Right.
So they have a tracking system.
Yeah, their system tracks how long they're on their break.
Correct.
And so it creates stress
for people while they're on their break.
Yeah, it's.
So like back in the old days when I used to go on a break back in my restaurant days, you had a little time card, right? You went, you punched it in the time card, it comes out. You put it in the little rack. You go and you have your 15 minutes that turns to be 22 minutes. You go back in, you put it in, and then it had the correct time. So it would just keep track of that.
I was a supervisor once, and I got called into the big boy's office and told that one of my employees had 2 seconds of time that he wasn't on the clock, and I had to write him up.
Oh, no. Did they really?
Yeah.
So that was a big deal thing. Yeah. But now what they have is they have all this tracking and cameras and everything. So when somebody goes on a break, they're not really on a break because they're being monitored in everything that they do. Amazon said that they came on out that essentially their time off policy, which is not time off from work, but time off when you're at work, has been criticized, and they're going to revamp it to make sure that the employee doesn't feel the pressure while they're on the break.
Yeah, that's bull. They knew about this when they started it.
I think it's just they had a bunch of negative pressure. It's this whole unionization thing that's really getting close.
I think this is probably why it's coming back up, is because of the unionization stuff.
I think so, too. So Amazon is also endorsing the federal marijuana legalization bill, and they will no longer drug test upon employment in the company.
No, they're going to test, but they're not going to test for marijuana.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to drug test, but not for marijuana.
Right.
Unless an incident happens, and they're then going to treat it the same as they would alcohol. So let's say they're
going to monitor everybody that has Fritos.
So what is going to happen is all of a sudden I start shipping packages to New York instead of Seattle, and they're supposed to go in there. They'll come on in, and then they'll take, as they would do any employee, take a test and see if they're either high or if they're drunk. And if they're high or drunk, they're probably going to get written up or let go. And
that's a little different nowadays. Those are usually referred to. Counseling before that happens.
Is it you normally go to like a step one?
Those things fall under ADA types of laws.
That makes sense. Well, we're going to go on story number 2. Netflix is looking to get into video games to keep subscriptions going. So here's our flip flop. Yeah. So we got thank you, David. So we got Amazon essentially.
Amazon is crushing Netflix. Yeah. And Netflix is going to.
So that seems like everybody's doing a trend with the Amazon big deal for MGM Studios. Netflix wanted to make sure they got out in the news also. So what they said is they are currently looking to expand, as they have done, their choose-your-own-adventure type stories. And so I did the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. My wife and I watched it, and it was pretty interactive. You would say, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And you'd watch it, and then you'd die, and you go, oops, okay, let's restart back over again.
I've never done that.
It was pretty cool. It was actually a pretty good interactive story, and there was a good enough dialogue with it. It didn't feel too cheesy, but they are specifically now looking to hire someone to lead their video game industry job posting. So if you want to be a part of Netflix video games to hire level, you can start applying for that because they want to move their game subscription services as a part of the Netflix offering.
Netflix Plus.
Netflix Plus Plus.
Netflix Plus.
So It's going to be interesting because it's just a race to keep subscribers paying for their content.
I'm sure Netflix is really they're hurting.
They are.
I mean, as soon as Disney started streaming, man,
that was a whole different war. And now you got the Paramount Plus. Yeah, you got Paramount Plus out there.
Everybody's streaming. Netflix doesn't have the
studios. They don't have the they don't have the New York,
anymore.
they don't have the New York offices, or they don't have the LA offices for studios and production. So they're kind of just trying to buy content.
I think this is.
I
kind of feel like this is one of their last gasps. We're gonna.
Is there Blockbuster time?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'm thinking.
All right. Okay. Here we go. Last story, real quick. We have audio about this. This is called Charlie Bite Me NFT sold.
Charlie bit me.
Or bit me. Sorry.
Charlie bit me. Ow! Ow, Charlie! Ow! Charlie! That really hurt!
Yesterday was the 14th anniversary of the uploading of this famous viral video, which has been viewed almost 1 billion times, with a B, 1 billion times. But guess what? It is officially off the internet after being auctioned off overnight as a non-fungible token, or an NFT. The video, listen to this, sold for $760,999. Wow.
So
that's more than the Disaster Girl one.
Yeah. So essentially, these kids, so they had the video that's been out there forever, right? And so essentially, they had 1 billion people have viewed it. They decided to remove it from all of the YouTube. They worked with YouTube to remove it from all the other streams where people reposted and commented about it. Sold it as an NFT, and all that money is going for them to go to college. Just think of that.
No kidding.
Just think of that. Kid's sitting on a chair. He puts his finger in his mouth, and he says, "Oh, he bits me." And
why are they going to college?
Well,
they just need to sit around biting their fingers.
Well, essentially, it was originally posted because they didn't have a way to send that large video to their grandparents, because you couldn't back then, right? I mean, the internet was so slow, so they put it on YouTube, and then they said, "Hey, grandparents, go look at it," and the grandparents shared it out and shared it out and shared it out, and then it became a national phenomenon. All right, well, non-fungible tokens are here to stay, and people are paying big prices for them. You can also get a TechTime Radio non-fungible token,
right.
and we'll talk about that at the end of the show. We're going to go out to a commercial break. I'm Nathan Mumm. We got Mike Orday here and David Brown in the studio. We're excited to come on back to our next guest, where we have Jason Sherman, who has been featured on several media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, The Verge, ABC News. Jason is a classical-trained violinist, and he was featured on the speaker for Fox Emmy Award-winning show Exploration Earth 2050. All right, and we have a Gamer Time thing talking about Atari, as we have the Atari console in here also, so stay tuned, and we'll see you after this commercial break.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, what's going on?
Have you heard about 180 Consulting?
No.
I love these guys. You know how much I avoid working with copy vendors, right?
Actually, I get to hear about it all the time.
Not anymore, because guess what? The guys at 180 Consulting took over the entire process. They assessed our needs, worked directly with the vendors on my behalf, and helped us understand our option. No sales fluff, just good information so we can make the right decision.
Well, that sounds good. How do they get paid?
Their only compensation comes from a small share of the cost savings they create. They work for us, and it's a win-win.
You know, that sounds like a no-brainer.
There's 2 ways to reach them. You can get them at info@180-consulting.com or visit them online at www.180-consulting.com.
www.180-consulting.com.
Thank you, Mike. 180-consulting.com.
Hi, I'm Bernadette Pager, host of An Informed Life Radio. In an age when the term misinformation is used to silence criticism and debate about COVID-19, vaccines, and more, we're bringing you doctors, lawyers, and scientists to discuss the missing information about your health and medical freedom. An Informed Life Radio airs right here on KKNW every Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. We're starting a real health revolution, one conversation at a time. Join us.
Welcome back to TechTime Radio. I'm your host, Nathan Mumm. So the year you're looking for is 257 AD is when Alexandria's library was taken apart. That's just the type of knowledge I have when I can find it on the computer.
Google is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It's amazing, isn't it? Well, welcome back. Well, during our break, we were sipping some whiskey, and it's been a little while since we've had a whiskey that tastes like this, hasn't it, Mike?
This one was pretty good.
It's a little bit, yeah. Our last two have been not too well.
Yeah, the
last two are both thumbs down, right?
Yeah. The one 3 weeks ago was really bad.
It was really bad. All right, so we have Edmund's Own Whiskey, 83 proof, $69 a bottle. This is the Scratch Distillery's Edmund's Own Whiskey. Remember when we had Dan Whedon on the show, and he talked about that whiskey?
Yeah, this is it.
This is exactly it. So I called them up after the show because he was saying how great it was, and I played the little clip of what we had, and they said they'd send us a bottle. So they absolutely sent us this bottle. It doesn't make any difference whether they sent it or not on how we like it or the taste is.
Edmund's Own.
But it is a distilled whiskey in new American oak barrels for 2 years. It's a unique blend of grains sourced from the nearby Skagit Valley. Shows incredibly complex and rich and smooth, balanced flavor with a little bit of a chocolate finish. So there you go. So we don't want to say if it's a thumbs up or thumbs down until the end of the show, but it has a little bit better tasting than the last couple that we've had. Yeah. All right, Mike, well, let's now get into our Ask the Expert segment.
This is a segment we call Ask the Experts.
All right, so we have our expert that will be joining us, Jason Sherman. He is a entrepreneur extraordinaire. He runs a web and mobile dev shop in a film studio from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he's going to be joining us today. He has been featured on a whole bunch of documentary specials. So him and I had a conversation, and our conversation just continued to drift, and we had a great time. And so we were going to talk about one thing, and we've completely changed it to talk about how to successfully produce a documentary. He's got tons of expertise, information. We were bouncing back and forth ideas, and by the time we were done, we're like, okay, this is like 40 minutes of great information. How are we going to put it on a 10-minute segment? So we have him on 2 segments. So he's joining us the first hour, then he's going to sit and listen to our letters and our Atari expose type of deal, and then he's going to be joining us for the second hour to talk about technology. So we're very excited to have him a part of the show. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nathan, man. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
We're so glad to be here. So our first segment is going to be how to create a successful documentary. So tell us a little bit about your background in filmmaking and how you got started.
Well, I originally got started. It's a crazy story. I'll keep it short. When my father retired, I created a video for his retirement party. And usually you just do a slideshow with photos. And I didn't want to do that. So I basically made a movie of his life and showed it in front of all of his friends and family. And they thought it was great. And they said, why don't you make movies? So I said, why don't I? So I got more equipment and I got better at it, started working with production companies, and eventually branched out on my own and became a filmmaker. So it definitely, took some time.
All right. So what are some of your major influences when you first started out?
Wow. We're talking the oldies, man.
Yeah, I got a bunch of questions here. Yeah, we're going to start out, build up the story so we can creat the story. So
great.
So
He's being slick.
That's right. I spent a lot of time on trying to get these questions. So I went to all of the film producing places to ask some of the best Larry King comments that he's ever talked about. So what was your major influence?
I mean, look, growing up, I watched a lot of Steven Spielberg movies, so he had a big influence. And then once I started to learn more about film itself, the technology behind film, I started watching Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, and the older movies. But growing up, my influences were more like Woody Allen and anything that had like Eddie Murphy in it, or Jim Carrey later on. I was like a big comedy person, but I really liked cinematography when it came to like Ridley Scott and like Steven Spielberg and eventually Christopher Nolan's style. So it's for me, it started with like the slapstick and the comedy and like the visual type of film, and then it turned into more cinematography.
The Three Stooges and that old stuff, that was a lot of work, right? They had to animate with the sound and effort, the same type, exaggerate the comedy level.
I took some film classes when I was in college. So.
Did you?
I did.
And did you want to be a film producer?
Nope.
No, you wanted, but you have written stories.
What I wanted to do was special effects when I was a kid.
Did you ever watch that movie FX?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I love that movie.
That was a good
That
one.
was a good movie. That was a great movie when it came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I turned to writing.
They faked all the accidents or something, and so it looked real, but it wasn't.
Yep. And then he had all the hidden in the costumes and different face masks. So that was okay. Never mind. All right, we're really dating. We're dating ourselves. We're supposed to be more modern. So hang on. So we'll be like,
I'm older.
All right. Okay. So what's the first step needed to begin the process of creating a documentary? So I know that you were just filming today, right? Isn't that you were just filming this?
This documentary is called Cutting Corners, about real estate. So I'm out there on the streets filming live because demolitions are happening every single day. And when they're demolishing a building, I got to get out there with my camera and start filming them, because if not, the building's gone, and then I lost my chance. And so that actually is the first thing you have to do. You have to identify a problem or an issue in the world. And for me, it's these demolitions of these buildings. So identifying a problem, you have to find something that people are upset about or you are upset about. And has it been exposed? If it hasn't been exposed, that's your angle.
That's your angle.
Is that why you chose documentaries over other forms of film?
Well, my first film is called The Bucks County Massacre. It's actually a horror film. So my first film was not a documentary. My second film, called The King's Highway, that is a documentary. And it kind of just fell in my lap. But I originally started making a feature film, and then I went into a documentary. So now my third happens to be a documentary. Why? Because I identified an issue that needs to be exposed once again. So it's not because I don't want to make feature films. That's my goal. Any filmmaker wants to make feature films. But the difference being the budget is much higher on a feature film. It's much more challenging and difficult to do because it's a completely different style of filmmaking.
Right.
All right. So what is one of the biggest surprises about the process from an outsider to take a look about putting together a film or a documentary, or even a short, right? Even a short little movie. What's the biggest surprise from somebody on the outside looking in? They'd be like, oh, this is really easy. Everybody thinks doing podcasts are really easy and radio's really easy too. And you just go and you sit in front of a deal and you talk, and there's like tons of prep time and there's tons of this. What's that?
Thanks for just ruining my world there.
What was that?
I thought everything was easy.
Well, you're going to come here and enjoy it. I have to. No. Okay. So
I run a podcast. I know what
you do. You do. What is the biggest surprise about the process from an outsider's view?
I mean, you just nailed it there. I mean, everybody thinks everything is easy, right? Everything is easy. And then when they find out it's not, they don't want to do the hard work to accomplish whatever the goal is. And when it comes to filmmaking, there's a misconception that you just buy a camera and get out there and start shooting. And I've seen people do that, and the result is not great. It's just like having a tool set, right? You can't just buy tools and immediately you know how to be a handyman.
You could go fix a car, right? You can take some screws and boom. Yeah.
This is also the contribution of Amazon and their ability to publish books. Everybody can publish a book now.
Yeah. So
exactly.
So everybody thinks a book publishing thing is really easy,
and there's
right?
a lot of
junk out there, right? So you can go for like $19
Horrible.
and you put it out there and you say, I'm going to sell it for 99 cents, and then it's listed, and now you're an author, right?
That's right. I've
interviewed a couple people, not for this show, but for other aspects that we've had, where they've put just junk books online, and they're like, oh, I'm an author for this, an author for that. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that's like really crappy. It's like you have misspellings on your title chapter, and it's just like, I can't even read it.
I've seen some pretty bad titles.
Yeah. All right. So what's the best thing that ever happened to you while shooting any of your films? So you start out with a horror film, right? So this is
right.
So is that because it was easier to do special effects? You wanted to do special effects? Is that what? Okay.
It was low budget. It was low budget, and it was at the time Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch Project were pretty big. So mine was similar to one of those.
Okay.
And I was able to film it in just a couple weekends. Editing, of course, took 6 months to a year, but able to get the actors together and the location together, it was a lot easier. When you shoot a feature film with multiple locations, multiple actors, multiple scenes and sets, I mean, we're talking a year or longer, and you need a big budget, hundreds of thousands of dollars, So I was able to pull off the horror for like $50,000, a couple weekends. It wasn't too bad.
Did you use local actors? Did you use some real name actors?
Yeah, everybody was local. I did have a celebrity in my first movie without knowing it, because at the time he wasn't really well known. His name's Brian Anthony Wilson, and he had since gone on to Silver Linings Playbook, and he's always playing the cop in a lot of big Hollywood productions.
Okay.
So he actually became pretty well known. But in my film, he plays an FBI agent or a chief of police, and I didn't know we didn't really know he was famous at the time.
Okay,
so that was kind of a surprise.
That was perfect. So what's the best thing that ever happened to you while shooting? Any of your whether it's the horror or it was something that you said, wow, that's a moment that was actually very enjoyable. I'm glad that we did that.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say it was probably going to be my documentary, The King's Highway. Being able to see people relive history through the movie. I've had people that I interviewed on camera started to cry, because they remembered ancestors or family members. Being able to see things that nobody else had seen before. And it just kind of opened my eyes to a whole new world that people had totally forgotten about. And seeing people live that through the movie was just completely fulfilling.
Perfect. All right, so let's let you take over a little bit here. So kind of tell us what if I wanted to do a documentary or I wanted to do a short movie or something like that, what are some of the key aspects I should be focusing on, and what's something that you probably have a tidbit to that I would not know about that would give me a little leg up in trying to get in there?
It's not easy.
What's funny, well, not only is it not easy, I mean, first of all, you need to, like any other challenging project, whether it's, building a tech startup or making music or writing a book or starting a podcast, you need to be able to dedicate a large amount of time to what you're about to do. So your mindset has to be, I'm about to put 1 year, 2 years into this project, especially movies. And believe it or not, making a documentary has nothing to do with filming at first. First, you need to become an expert in the topic that you're about to tackle. This means doing research, looking up for data, analytics, looking for people who you might want to interview, looking for stories, finding a community online that supports this problem that you're going to expose, right? There's Facebook groups, Twitter groups, whatever. You need to find those people who are talking about this problem, join those groups, talk to them, figure out what the actual problem is, because that's how you'll find the call to action. You need to navigate through it. Then you want to get out there and actually start filming, right? You want to, whatever that topic is, you want to start filming it to get not only B-roll, but interview people. A lot of times I find when you interview people, you start to find out pieces of the story that you had no idea existed because you couldn't find that out in your research. You had to find out from the experts who you were interviewing. Once you start getting that in the interviews and the B-roll is secondary footage that you put on top of the talking heads. That's what B-roll is. Then you want to start typing out a narrative, right? You don't do that right away. You wait a little while because as you're getting people talking to you, you're starting to see a story form. That's when you get out your screenwriting hands and you start typing out what you would narrate on screen. Because it's the only way really to come up with a story is to hear others tell the story. And then you can figure it out along the way.
So that's really key. That's key, I guess, right? Because people would think that I'm going to create a documentary on X, right? And so I have this whole idea and I'm going to be talking about this and that. But what you're saying is have an idea about kind of a subject you want to do, interview the people, and then from there create your story significantly based upon the information that you're learning about in your due diligence or your fact checking.
Absolutely. It's a combination of all of that. So you're doing fact checking, research, interviews, and then you're kind of starting to extrapolate what you can from all of it to craft a narrative that makes sense. Because what you'll find, and this is what everybody who's listening is going to find out, if you start working on a documentary, you'll find that most of what you're listening to is not very interesting. Your job, you're going to fall asleep. Your job as the filmmaker is to make it entertaining. And that's where the narrative comes in.
So, that's very interesting because some documentaries that I've watched, I can really get into. So there's like Netflix did some series on video games. Mm-hmm. They did some series on movies, how these movies were made. And so it was very interesting because they wanted to talk about the movie, but essentially the entertaining aspect was how did Elf
come to be?
Some guy that had a script, he wanted to really sell it, so he came in, and so the story around how it came to be was way more entertaining than the production problems they had and the person doing this or the person doing that. It was the story that they put together. And I see other documentaries where it's just like fact after fact after fact. Here's what we got, and in the World War it did this, and then it did this, and they find it to not be as entertaining. It's tougher to listen to.
Oh, those are my favorite.
Oh, those are your favorite
Yeah,
ones?
those are my favorite.
I don't find those. Okay.
That's because I'm a smarty pants.
You're smarty pants, so you like that stuff? All right.
It's a fine line. It's a fine line.
So how do you get recognized to be picked up by a larger studio after you've started working on your documentary and anything like that, so that you can actually finance your film? Or how do you go about doing films? Because there's tons of films on YouTube, right? So I can go to YouTube and find anything about anything. You can just type in a word in there. And then some of these you could see like people spent some time probably trying to put together a documentary, probably tried to be an expert on some of these subjects. But what ended up happening is they either lost interest, they couldn't get financing, so they kind of dumb it down, or they just kind of post it and it doesn't get taken care of. When you're actually producing some of these stuff, how do you go about making it so that it becomes an A-rated documentary or movie or film versus something that you find on the back shelf?
That's a fantastic question, and it's a loaded one because it requires a lot of different answers.
Well, we are drinking.
We are drinking. That's right.
You're going to need a couple more shots for this one. But realistically, the first thing people need to know if they're going to make a movie is that you're probably not going to get financing unless you are able to get a grant from a foundation, or if you're able to raise money on Kickstarter with a trailer, which I've done before for my second movie, or if you have friends and family who believe in your project and they want to give you money. Local organizations, you really got to kind of do grassroots campaigning to get money in the beginning. Studios are not going to fund you. Netflix and Amazon are not going to fund you. Hollywood studios, not going to fund you. They're too reliant on the franchises that they own. They're too reliant on the producers and the screenwriters that they already have on staff, the agents they work with. So you can pretty much forget about it unless your uncle works at company XYZ. Okay. So your next best thing to do is to film your documentary with your own money, your own equipment, or local production companies that want to share in the revenue and the credit. And once you get it out there, your first step is to get it into film festivals. There are tons of them, right? So you have to pick and choose wisely based on which film festivals either are local to you, which ones are top name, which ones are going to be the most the result will be getting distributed if you win one of them. And typically agents and distributors, they go to these film festivals. So if you are lucky enough to win one, they're going to come to you. They're going to ask you, hey, we saw your movie at the film festival. Do you have an agent? Do you have a distributor? If you don't have one, they'll say, would you like to sign with us? And typically they'll take a percentage of the revenue that you earn from the movie based on their distribution. And that's pretty much how it works. If you don't get a distributor or an agent through a film festival, there is self-publishing. You can publish it yourself on Amazon. You cannot publish it on Netflix. They have to license it from you. And it's very difficult to get into Netflix, believe it or not. It is very difficult. And I know you guys have been talking about Netflix a lot. There's something that you should notice when you watch Netflix shows and movies. Take a closer look at the quality of the films and the shows. And you'll notice they all look very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's because Netflix requires their filmmakers to use specific cameras, codecs, and resolutions. If you don't fit those specs, they will not allow you to produce a film for Netflix. So they're very kind of, very closed boxed.
I wonder if that'll change the more Amazon beats them up.
I don't know. It could a little bit. Well, and you know what?
I hope so.
I would too. So now what's really exciting about this is almost our segment's done, but all the technical aspects and questions that you have about how to put together from cameras to software to editing to all these secret tricks and everything, we can be talking about that on our second hour. So we're really excited about that. And Jason's going to be back with us to specifically talk about how to put that together, because that's a good 20 minutes plus of information. Mm-hmm. We were talking about a bunch of items. So you got teaser number one. You got your documentary. Kind of what you need to do is you need to go to a film festival and win a prize. So like if you go to the Seattle International Film Festival, the SIFF, you need to make sure you submit it there. Now, last question before we head out. Do you submit it in like a portable hard drive you send to them? Do you send these places just the files digitally? How do you go about entering?
There's actually websites now where you put your movie, your trailer, all the information about the cast and crew, basically the IMDb.
Okay.
And that's how you submit it now to film festivals. They want to see an online screener. You don't really do the hard drives and the DVDs through the mail anymore. You still can do that, but they totally prefer the online screener.
That makes sense. All right, Jason, thank you very much for being our guest, and we'll talk to you next hour.
Sounds good.
All right. Jason's going to be back with us. That's very exciting to talk about in our second hour. But when we come on back from our commercial break, we got Atari. Have you heard of that company called Atari?
Never.
It's back. It is back, and we're going to talk about what its plans to do. After 20 years of being nowhere, it is deciding to rise from the ashes like a
Hey, we're going to
phoenix.
talk about your cartridge in there.
That's right. We're going to talk about that, too. All right, we'll see you right after this commercial break. I'm Nathan Mumm. We got Mike Corday here and David Brown.
Did you know that up to 12 to 15% of Americans grind their teeth at night while they sleep? Yeah, it's called bruxism. I used to work at a sleep lab, and we used to measure that, and it leads to a lot of problems like headaches and destroys your teeth. It wears down the enamel, and it's just very hard on your mouth.
So every once in a while, I'll wake up, my jaw will hurt. Do you think that I'm grinding my teeth at night?
Yep.
Well, so how do you go about protecting this then?
The number one recommended way of protecting yourself from teeth grinding is what's called a night guard, which is a custom fitted prosthetic that you put inside your mouth. It usually runs, hundreds of dollars, but I know our sponsor, Smile Brilliant, can get you custom fitted night guards for as little as $45 a piece.
So if you go to smilebrilliant.com and use TechTime Radio at checkout, you can receive 20% off your complete order. So visit smilebrilliant.com and use the TechTime Radio at checkout code. All right, here we go. Welcome back to TechTime Radio. I'm your host, Nathan Mumm. We got Mike Corday here, and we got our Atari segment coming on up as we get into gamer time. All right, we're navigating through the mover and shakers in the gaming industry and new trends, all the way up to virtual reality. Welcome to Gamer Time. Atari is back with the Atari VCS. So it's not the console that you see here, because that's the 2600 that you're looking at. It's a Steven Spielberg movie there, E.T. That's right.
E.T.
That's right. So
the worst video game ever.
So if you want to check out a documentary, as we're talking about documentaries, you go on to Netflix and watch the documentary about video games and E.T. Yeah, they made more cartridges than there were people in the world,
and they filled up the landfills.
They did. All right. So Atari is back. An interesting concept. The Atari 2600 is coming on out with a refresh called the Atari VCS. It's capable of playing more than 100 home and arcade classic Atari games, because these things are like 8-bit type of deals. So it would take nothing to do that. But Atari is coming on out with the idea of coming out with a 4K HDR streaming PC with its own proprietary OS. So they're coming out with a console for $299 or $399, depending on the model you choose. June 15th, these consoles go on sale.
Can it stream Netflix?
So it could. It actually has the ability to do that, and Google Apps. We'll be talking about that. So it's pretty exciting. This is different than a PS5 or an Xbox Series, but essentially the new owners of Atari, because Atari went bankrupt and was repurchased. Atari's COO, Michael Ertz, says this is offering something specifically for younger generations and older generations with this device. So it has the ability to become some PC aspects for us older people and play the games and have the same controllers.
They're doing the nostalgia factor for us.
For the older audience. And then for the 27 and under, they're doing all the streaming audience, kind of like what you would get from a streaming service online where you can play streaming games specifically for it. This is not going to be the state-of-the-art graphics that you're going to see on an Xbox or Xbox. I was going to say an Xbox 360, but that's not. A PlayStation or an Xbox 360.
You're really showing your age today.
Atari's new piece of hardware will come on out. Their last one they released was 1993 Jaguar, which was a monumental flop. The Jaguars that came on out.
Like the car.
Yeah, so it was horrible. The company then went through multiple hands of leadership. It emerged from bankruptcy and has been on the market to socialize gaming and producing online gambling through their new devices. So this device is going to really target our age
here we
with
go.
the ability to
See,
have
that's-
online gambling aspects of it, so we can do horse racing,
Yeah, so
poker,
there you go.
some
There-
very simple concepts.
I've been trying to figure out why Atari would come in and try to compete against Xbox.
So just think of that. If I could go play poker with you and we could go into a community event, you put $10 up, I put $10 up, and we have a couple other people and we play poker for 2 or 3 hours, and they make a little bit of money on the side because you have to pay a little ante, but then whoever wins gets that money. That'd be a pretty interesting concept, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking at. So let's talk about what the Atari VCS has. It is $299 for their low-end model without all their joysticks. $399 is their high-end model that comes with a traditional joystick like we
Look at
have
that.
here. We have some of the original joysticks and then a modified joystick, much like the Xbox controllers and PlayStation controllers. So it's got an analog controller based on 4-button layout, so much more advanced. They essentially talked about this in 2017 and essentially have gone through 3 or 4 different leadership heads to decide if they were going to produce this device or not. So they were going to come on out with it. Kickstarted. I was an early investor into it, and I essentially
bet you were.
And I essentially pulled my money out because the main guy that was doing it left the studio, and I didn't know if they were actually going to come out with it. I didn't want to get eaten with having a cost for something that didn't release. So it will be available in 3 models. A classic wood grain walnut front, so you get to get one that looks almost exactly like this. They have a new re-imaged carbon gold finish, and then they have a all black model. So you can get traditional looking, a black model, or a nice finished model. They come with HDMI output, 4 3.1 USB ports, which is pretty good. That means that's the brand new standard for USB ports. The system is highly customizable, and it has its own PC mode. Users are able to upgrade the hardware and customize their gaming experience on their own. So they have the hardware for the hard drive, the memory, everything is going to be able to be interchangeable. So you're going to be able to take apart this little Atari box / computer and get a better hard drive, better memory, even the possibility of having better video memory for higher end graphic components. So they're making it much like the original Xbox, which was all computer parts. You could hack away at that, I know,
Yeah.
because you could change that into an entertainment system. You could change it to do a bunch of different things. They're opening up to that. They're using their Radeon graphics technology and the AMD customized processor. They have their own custom OS built for the device, but you can absolutely wipe it and load any Windows operating system or any other operating system you want into the machine itself. Again, it launches June 15th. You can only buy it online, or you can go to Best Buy, Micro Center, or GameStop to get it, and they only have them available at the day of release. So we're giving you the information now. All right, so
June
15th. So 10 days from now. You need to make sure you get on there early, otherwise it'll end up probably being like one of these sold out things where you have to go to eBay and pay $500 more for it at a later time. The good thing about it is that it'll come with 100 arcade home classics built into the machine. That's because it's going to take...
Is it going to have E.T. on it?
It may have E.T. on it. And I'm sure my favorite game on the old Atari was Air Sea Battle. Did you ever play Air Sea Battle?
Yeah, that was like wasn't that the very first one?
It was like the very first game.
First game.
Yeah, your little thing, you'd shoot and guys would go up and down. And Outlaw was pretty cool too, because you were like a Western, you'd have to shoot through the cactus, and your bullets would bounce. I don't know how realistic that was back then, but your bullets would bounce off a wall.
I remember.
Remember that?
What was the driving game? I remember the driving game.
They had one that was just called Drive.
I think that's probably what it was.
I mean, their names were Combat. I mean, they were so
Combat.
so simple. They didn't, Missile Command. I mean, that was like a real big one because they had to put 2 words on it. So
I know.
They were all about the single
and
world.
then they had Pac-Man. That was a super. Asteroids was my favorite.
Asteroid was pretty good too.
I used to flip that. I used to spend hours and hours.
And you roll over the score,
yeah.
so you go back to 0. They also say Atari is working to be able to have indie favorites and AAA games too. In April of 2021, the Atari VCS announced a handful of new titles that will be available from Game Rant. So you're going to be able to have new streaming services. So think of where do you get your streaming games currently right now? It's normally Steam, right?
Steam.
So think of Steam's platform based upon a device like this that you could easily download and play games from. plus all old-timer games and a couple gambling games on there. That fits right into our category age of not having to hit 55 buttons and move around and see the special combinations and still enjoy some
There's
time.
no fun in that.
No, I don't get those new games. I don't understand how they did. All right, well, we're going to end our segment. When we come on back, we still have Mike's mesmerizing moment. We have our pick of the day coming on up, so we'll be right back after this commercial break. Hey, Mike.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, have you heard of Unidragon?
Yeah, that's the puzzle dude.
That's right. Guess what? They moved to Amazon.
Yeah, I know. The owl told me.
The owl told you?
Yeah, it's all about the owl.
Oh, the owl. Oh, the owl and Unidragon told you.
Yeah, we've talked about this guy before. He's the puzzle guy.
He's the puzzle guy. That's correct. They do, of course, have the owl, and the owl is available for you to now get with Prime free delivery.
Awesome.
We've made it easier for people to find the owl.
Yeah, I know. The owl told me about that too.
The owl did. What did the owl tell you?
He told me to go on to the TechTime Radio website and /sponsors.
Wow, the owl is just telling you everything. That's correct. If you go to techtimeradio.com/sponsors, you see our sponsor right there, and it's got a link so you can immediately click and purchase Unidragon off of Amazon. Don't get fooled by fake puzzle people out there trying to sell you imitation puzzles. Go and find the brand you can trust, Unidragon.com. And again, go to techtimeradio.com/sponsors, because the owl will tell you no place better to buy it than with the TechTime Radio code.
Yeah, there's 3 sizes.
There's 3 sizes.
There is.
All right, welcome back to TechTime Radio. I'm your host, Nathan Mumm. We got Mike Roday here and David Brown behind the board. We're excited to be getting into our Mike's mesmerizing moment.
This is Mike's mesmerizing moment, presented by StoriCoffee. Visit StoriCoffee.com.
You know, we kind of touched on this while we were talking to Jason earlier, where everybody thinks everything's easy.
They do.
And I think that's one of the byproducts of our technological age here, is that we can Google anything we want and get these answers, but it gives us a false sense of security in thinking that that everything is just simple and easy to do. You know, and when it comes to human beings, it still comes down to repetition, doing it, learning the tangentials that come with that learning, and then processing it through your own system.
So, you know what? We have a lot of post-editing work that goes on into the video, right? So we get our audio that comes in from David, and he does a great job with the audio here at KKNW 1150 because it's a radio station, and then we get the video and we mix it. Mm-hmm. And so I have to use like Adobe Premiere just to mix that type of stuff. And there's hours into this. And, and I look back and I'm like, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? And there's ways you could shortcut it, but then it's not going to come out to the same product. And so I have a huge issue with that about trying to shortcut certain steps. I write them all down and I have a document.
Yeah, I've seen them.
And I want to make sure that those are done correctly. So if somebody's listening to our show for the first time, for the last time, that they're still getting the same high quality and not cut those corners.
Yeah, but you're actually going to adapt those to yourself, and they may not mean anything to somebody else. So you're going to have your own adaptations. That I just think is the interesting thing is that we have all this information at our fingertips, and we automatically are always thinking that things are so easy. And a lot of things when we start, we like, oh, I'm going to be a podcaster. Okay, great. And then you start it, and you're like, why aren't you doing that anymore? Oh, it's too hard.
Yeah, so
it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes. What we see is these finished products, and we don't know that you have to spend hours with a video editor.
Yep.
Running through each line or whatever you're doing.
Even cutting commercials, right? Our commercials sound really funny.
Well, yeah. I mean, we spend an average commercial that's 30 seconds here actually takes us 30 minutes of recording because we go over the different
scripts of different ideas and the different things we did.
Play with some. We're just not. Well, sometimes we're just talking, but you know, we have a production.
Correct. It does take that time. All right. Well, we're going to now move into our pick of the day.
And now our pick of the day for our whiskey tastings. Let's see what bubbles to the top.
All right.
It's been a long time since we've heard this.
We're on time today. I like that. Okay, so we have our whiskey. It is the Edmunds' Own whiskey, 83 proof. $69. Scratch Distillery, Edmonds own. What do you think? Is it a thumbs up or thumbs down? Mike,
I'm going to give it a thumbs up. This is not, I think this is a nice mid-range one for me. This would be something that I would not choose right off the bat as my best flavored, but this would be something I would have.
I'd mix this with something else a little bit of a caramel syrup or something like that. For me, I'd like a little bit more sweeter.
You're gonna put some Splenda in it?
Yeah, maybe some Splenda.
I like it. It's good.
Aspartame. All right, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up also. So that's 2 thumbs up. It's been a while since we've had that. Now let's talk about what we have coming up on our second hour. Mike, we're almost done with our show. On the second hour, we have our letter segment, reading the email scams. We got a real funny one to talk about. Cut and paste didn't work for this guy. We have a feature segment that we're going to be talking about specifically how to do more video editing. And then we have Satya Nadella.
Boy,
I probably butchered it there. From Microsoft CEO, what you didn't know about him. I am Nathan Mumm. We got David Brown behind the board. Microday. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on TechTime Radio. We hope that you had a chance to have that moment today in technology. The fun doesn't stop there. We recommend that you go to techtimeradio.com and join our fan list for the most important aspect of staying connected and winning some really great monthly prizes. We also have a few other ways to stay connected, including subscribing to our podcast on any podcast service, from Apple to Google and everything in between. We're also on YouTube, so check us out on youtube.com/techtimeradio, all one word. We hope you enjoyed the show as much as we did making it for you. From all of us at TechTime Radio, remember, Mumm's the word. Have a safe and fantastic week.